Comprehensive sexual education is important to me because I believe that teens deserve to know how sex works. Sex itself is something that teens are going to participate in whether they are informed or not. However, if we give them that comprehensive sex ed, they will be safer. They're less likely to get pregnant, less likely to contract disease. And ultimately, it's about securing the future of teens, ultimately, such as like self-preservation. The part of comprehensive sex ed I think is important to my peers is understanding consent. I believe consent is a big part of sexual education because without consent, you have nothing. However, I think that we should discuss more over what consent is. Like, consent is a yes, a verbal yes from the person, not a okay or so-so. And I feel like we as teens need to understand that, so that way we're not like coerced to do something. We understand that if I say no, my no has merit. Comprehensive sexual education in school could better help me and my peers by just taking us aside and helping us understand what's going on with our body and teaching us that what we are experiencing is normal. I feel like sex is often this like taboo, especially for teens, like, oh, you don't need to worry about that until you're adult. And then you're adult and you don't know what to do. You don't know how a condom works. You don't know that you can get an STD. And so by having that outlet of school, being taught that, me and my peers can be better educated and we can feel seen and we can feel like normal people because that's what we are. We're human beings.
The reason comprehensive sex ed is so important is because kids need to be able to understand what sex is, because 90% of the population will engage in sex or sexual activities at some point. And so if they don't understand what sex is, how it works, what consent is, what's unhealthy, what's not healthy, they'll go in ill prepared. So they could either be taken advantage of or they could miss out. They could miss out on something that they would have otherwise been okay with normally. And it just leads to a lot of uncomfortability when that stuff comes up, because being taken advantage of is a big thing that sex ed tries to avoid. Having sex ed in school would benefit me because it allowed me to learn a lot of things I don't know. I don't know much about sex, and I'm growing. I'm 15, I'm only 4 years away from being 18, and then I'm out into the real world where sex is not common per se, but a thing that's just a part of some romantic lives. And so when I get into a romantic relationship, I'd like to have information so I can take it. And so I know when not to be taken advantage of, and when maybe I'm taking advantage of someone else, so I'm not accidentally doing something that I thought was okay, but is actually wrong. Some topics that are the most important in sex ed would be definitely consent and unhealthy relationships. Sex and STDs, that can come after. It's definitely important. But first and foremost, before we learn anything about that, consent and healthy relationships should be definitely prioritized because usually relationships come before sex. So when you're already in an unhealthy relationship, unhealthy sex will obviously follow, and rape can follow, sexual assault can follow, anything can follow. People have died because of unhealthy relationships. So sex ed about consent can save lives, because people need to learn the empathy that comes with consent. Need to learn that people have feelings, and when people say no, they mean it.
As a math teacher, I can use comprehensive sex ed in the classroom by providing them with the statistics, the math, showing them like the progression over year. Like, this is what happens. This is what is currently happening within our region, within our city, with those that are underage, showing them, giving them a space to learn about sexual education by presenting the things that they know about sex, but also opening them up to things that maybe they haven't heard about, like the HPV, something that is very, very new, but many of our students have no idea what it is. So giving them an opportunity to express what they know and showing them things that they don't know to make them even more aware of what's going on and the sexual education. As a teacher, comprehensive sexual education is important to me because it gives the students the opportunity to make very wise choices. It gives them an insight of what is good. It gives them an insight of how this can affect them mentally, physically, and sometimes spiritually. It gives them an insight of how to navigate relationships, how to be vulnerable, how to make mental decisions that will not only affect them for that time, but affect them their entire life. So it gives them a platform to not be afraid and not be unaware of what's going on. So it really enlightens them. It makes them prepared. It gets them ready for any of those events that may happen down the future.
Comprehensive sex education is important because so many times our young people are getting information from a variety of sources. Not all sources are appropriate, not all sources have been vetted, and some of them are just flat out wrong. So it's important for us to have a structured way of having conversation around appropriate relationships, appropriate touches, and also just what sex is and what and healthy ways of navigating those relationships. And when they finally make that decision, we want them to have the best information they can to be safe, right, and to make appropriate decisions. As a parent, having at least the exposure to comprehensive sex education, like learning as a parent, and helping kind of navigate those conversations at home by just having those talking points, right? Being able to speak directly to the different components of what those, I kind of laid it out before, but what those things mean, right? What's an appropriate relationship? What are some toxic traits that are necessary to kind of discuss those? Even getting into the actual nature of sex itself, that consent is not necessarily always consensual, right? Just because I have boys, I have sons and daughters. So I got to look at both ends of the spectrum. So being able to speak to both sides of the relationship and what that means is important in that conversation. The topic that is most important for my kids to learn, I think, still centers in around healthy relationships. I think this entire world is built upon a relationship. So the more our kids can understand, my kids can understand what healthy, positive relationships look like, and also what those warning signs look like. If there are some things that pop up, those red flags, those are probably the most essential things I think they need to know, right? What does healthy look like? What does unhealthy look like? And then beyond that, a little bit more, how do I navigate it if something just doesn't feel right to me in a relationship, right? How do I be assertive in my own space and be able to get myself in a better place if it's not healthy?